When the final diplomatic efforts collapse, the Pentagon no longer debates peaceful scenarios. Patience has run out, red lines have been crossed, and the crisis has officially gone kinetic. Operation Lightning Belt, the codename for a comprehensive airstrike campaign aimed at neutralizing the adversary's core military capabilities, is officially activated. But as the battle plan is laid on the table, an ironic reality emerges. The weapon shouldering the heaviest workload, dropping the most tonnage of munitions, and deciding the success or failure of the campaign is not the $2 billion B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Nor is it the 5th-generation F-35 Lightning fleet. It is a machine that took to the skies before the parents of its current pilots were even born. The B-52 Stratofortress flying fortress. 70 years old, a Cold War-era design, with a radar cross-section the size of a building. So, how can this antiquated flying machine survive and overwhelm the most advanced air defense system in the Middle East? To answer that, we must look at the enemy's air defense network. The heart of Iran's defense is its Integrated Air Defense System, or IADS. This is not just a scattering of anti-aircraft guns. It is a lethal ecosystem. They possess S-300PMU, 2 batteries purchased from Russia, the domestically developed Bavar 373 system, and countless short-range Tor M1 complexes providing overlapping protection. Any non-stealth flying object entering a 120-mile radius will be immediately locked on and destroyed. For a B-52, flying directly into this airspace on day 1 of the war isn't brave. It's suicide. That is when the B-52 changes the rules of the game. If it cannot be stealthy against radar, it will use the geometry of survival. During the first 2 weeks of Operation Lightning Belt, Iranian airspace is classified as highly contested. The B-52 fleet takes off from forward operating bases, flying for hours, but they stop at an invisible boundary in the sky, exactly 500 miles from the enemy's coast and borders. Why 500 miles? Because that is absolute safety. The enemy's S-300 can only see up to 185 miles. Remaining stationary at this aerial standoff point, the B-52 opens its weapon bays and launches AGM-158B JAS SMER cruise missiles. These are standoff cruise missiles, with a flight range exceeding 500 miles. At this point, the B-52 is no longer a traditional bomber. It is transformed into a giant mobile missile launcher. The stealthy F-35 is excellent, but it can only carry 2 JASSMs internally. If it carries more externally, it loses its stealth capabilities. Meanwhile, a single B-52 carries 20 JASSMs, 8 on an internal rotary launcher, and 12 on underwing pylons. A formation of 5 B-52s can unleash 100 cruise missiles simultaneously. These missiles are themselves small stealth flying objects, skimming close to the ground, weaving through ravines to evade radar, seeking out the enemy's command posts and missile launchers. Anti-aircraft radar operators on the ground will stare at pitch-black screens until the missiles are just miles away. Too late to react. Within 2 weeks, the B-52 tears apart the enemy's air defense network from a distance the enemy cannot even reach. Heading into Week 3, the F-35 fleets and cruise missiles have finished their door-kicking mission. 80% of the enemy's radar and long-range anti-aircraft missile systems have been neutralized. Iranian airspace now transitions from contested to suppressed. At this moment, the Pentagon's objective shifts. They are no longer hunting radars, they are targeting the heart of the enemy's military program, deep underground facilities. But cruise missiles like the JASSM or Tomahawk reveal a fatal flaw. They fly parallel to the ground and carry relatively light warheads, only about 700 to 1,000 pounds. When crashing into an underground bunker reinforced with dozens of meters of rock and concrete, a cruise missile is like a tomato thrown at a brick wall. It creates a spectacular explosion on the surface, but leaves the facility below entirely unscathed. You cannot use a hammer to drill through a wall. You need a nail, and that nail weighs 2,000 pounds. In weeks 4 and 5, the tactics completely shift. The B-52 no longer stands at a 500-mile standoff. Thanks to the cleared airspace, these giants fly directly into enemy airspace at an altitude of 40,000 feet. The weapon bays open, dropping GBU 3-1 JDAM bombs equipped with BLU-109 penetrator warheads. The BLU-109 is not a fragmentation bomb. It is a solid, forged piece of super hardened steel. Free-falling from an altitude of over 12 kilometers, gravity turns it into a metallic meteor. It slams into the bunker's roof at supersonic speeds, its kinetic energy tearing through reinforced concrete. But what creates the true devastation is the FMU, 143 delayed fuse. This fuse doesn't trigger on impact. It counts down in milliseconds. It waits until the bomb has pierced through the 10-meter thick ceiling, plunging into the underground chamber filled with munitions or nuclear centrifuges, and only then does it detonate 535 pounds of high explosives. A bomb exploding in a confined underground space creates a crushing pressure wave, setting off secondary detonations of the enemy's entire ammunition stockpile. Only the B-52 can carry dozens of these super heavy bombs at once to crush an entire underground base in a single pass. Stealth cannot do that. Kinetic energy and mass can. So why doesn't the US military continue using high-tech standoff weapons until the end of the campaign? The answer brings us to the final, harshest problem of any war: war economics. Stealth cruise missiles are fantastic, but they are astronomically expensive and incredibly slow to produce. The US Defense Industrial Base can only manufacture around 1,000 JASSM kits a year. In a high-intensity conflict like Operation Lightning Belt, a B-52 fleet could deplete a year's entire production in just the first 2 weeks. Each JASSM-ER missile costs over $2.5 million. When a single B-52 unloads 20 of them from afar, that is $50 million vanishing in one mission. No nation, not even the US, can sustain that financial and logistical tempo in a prolonged war. The enemy knows this. They build tens of thousands of decoy targets and thousands of empty bunkers to drain the US's expensive missile inventory. But when the B-52 switches to flying directly overhead and dropping JDAMs in week 5, the math changes. A JDAM guidance kit attached to a dumb iron bomb costs only about $30,000. A sortie dropping 20 penetrator bombs costs less than $1 million. From $50 million down to under $1 million, a 98% reduction in cost, while the destructive power and ability to annihilate underground targets increases exponentially. The Pentagon has tens of thousands of such bombs in its arsenal. Massive firepower, low cost, and endurance are what break the fighting will of a nation. Operation Lightning Belt comes to a close. The F-35 and B-2 stealth aircraft will forever be praised on magazine covers for their door-kicking capabilities and miraculous survivability. They are the indispensable tip of the spear. But the spearhead only paves the way. What shatters the shield, destroys the foundation, and truly finishes off the enemy's ability to resist is a machine of pure physics. The B-52 doesn't need to be stealthy, because by the time it appears in your sky, you no longer have radars to look with, no longer have missiles to fire, and no longer have a bunker deep enough to hide it. In modern warfare, technology starts the battle, but payload and economics dictate the ultimate victor.